All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Uh, my name is Tony Wu. I'm one of the co-hosts for InsurTech New York's webinar session, Breaking Free from the Core System Giants. We'll have amazing speakers here, experts on this topic. We'll be discussing this, but want to share a little bit about our community before we hand it off to Tony and Andy. But welcome. If you're interested in learning more about how to break from core system giants, you're in the right place. If not, hopefully you can still enjoy the session today. So just a little bit about InsurTech New York. We are a community that exists to provide different ways for stakeholders in the InsurTech community to connect. InsurTech brokers, underwriters, carriers, brokers, tech enablers, and others. And we do this through multiple programs. We have startup programs, the InsurTech Match Program, MGA Lab. We also host events, including Spring Conference, which I'll talk about a little bit. And we also invest in early stage InsurTechs as well. We host a lot of different activities. As you can see here, this is our calendar for the next several months. And, there's many different events, but I definitely want to highlight a couple of them that are upcoming. So our next public event will be in New York on November 4th. It's on the topic of distribution. There will be debates, interesting debates on whether AI will replace human agents, among other very interesting distribution topics. So hopefully you guys can join that and participate on the debate. And if you're an agent or broker interested in meeting InsurTechs, we actually have a speed dating section of in the beginning part of the event as well. So hopefully you guys can join that as well. And how to register is all on our website, insurtechny.com. And we'll be sharing the link after sometime today or tomorrow. And we also have our annual conference coming up. This is our 6th time doing it. We get about 1,000 people on an annual basis on the topic of life and health, as well as PNC topics. And it's a very engaging event. And next year, our theme is human side of insurance. There's a lot of talk about AI tech replacing humans, but our view is that there's always going to be human side to the equation, and we need humans to use the technology, but not necessarily. I don't think they'll be fully replaced. So we'll talk about how humans can leverage the technology more effectively. So there's our early bird special going on. So hopefully you guys can register. All right. So now let's get to the topic of the hour here. So we came up with this topic with Neota Logic, the co-host of this webinar, because talking to a lot of different CIOs of insurance companies, we heard many people complain or just kind of be frustrated by the fact that they're on this endless core system upgrades, where once they start this process, it's very difficult for them to do all their innovative activities. So we have experts Tony and Andy who will be talking about different best practice tips on how you can free yourself from some of these core system giants. So with that, I hand it off to Tony.
Thanks very much indeed, Tony. Much appreciated for that introduction. So I'm Tony Tarquini. I'm going to be moderating today's session. My background is 35 years in insurance technology and consulting, and that's given me an opportunity to work with pretty well all the major insurers and brokers, certainly in Europe and many in the US, both in insurer and policy administration systems in my early days, but more latterly, last 15, 20 so years, systems of interaction. So much more at the front end where organizations are working with their customers, their partners, and their suppliers. So I'm very much looking forward to exploring this subject with my old friend, Andy Hawks, who, Andy, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tony. I think I think we've met back in the 90s, so it's been a long while.
I was going to admit to that, Andy, but
So it's Andy Hawks, CEO of Cardinus. Cardinus is a wholly owned subsidiary of Amwins, who are arguably, I think, the world's largest wholesale insurance, reinsurance, or specialty broker. Um, I've been in this insurance profession for far too many, 40 plus years now. I have a background where I started off in underwriting, realized that wasn't for me, moved into sales, marketing, and in the 90s started to look at the internet or e-commerce, as we called it back in the day. I've set my own underwriting agency up. Um, the, Before the term InsurTech was invented back in 2003, it was an e-commerce driven commercial SME, MGA. I've invested in a couple of other entities. Um, Cardinus, whilst not an insurance company, I think it's pretty worth sort of pointing out, we're a software and tech enabled business focused on health, safety, security, ergonomics, fleet risk, and about 20% of our revenue is directly connected to insurance companies, NGAs, and brokers. 80% we deal direct with with major customers, some big global brands. But 100% of that revenue, if you like, is connected to insurance because we're here to reduce and mitigate risk. So, whilst we're not an insurance business per se, we're very much part of that insurance um, network, and we work for organisations to reduce their compliance exposures, their claims costs, whether it be property damage, liability related casualty risk, musculoskeletal risk, and so on, as well as productivity, presenteeism, absenteeism. So that's kind of a, a 45-year summary of my career.
Fantastic. Well, if you've been around a bit, I think is probably the best way to do this.
That's the expression. Yeah.
So, just to our audience, if you've got questions that you want to pose to Andy, or indeed myself, feel free to pop those into the Q&A session. We'll have a look at if we can pick those up as we go along. We certainly will, or we'll cover them at the end if we can. So that's on the logistical side. So getting into the meat of it, the famous scientist Stephen Hawking notably said in his Oxford graduation speech, "Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change." Now we know that policy admin systems and back end systems need to be resilient and stable. They've got to be rigorous. They've got to be scalable, and frankly, there's can't be any compromises in that. You can't afford to get your accounting or your statutory reporting wrong. But the opposite is true of systems of interaction, which need to be more, frankly, simultaneously customer-centric. They need to be automated, omni-channel, powered by data and AI. Most importantly, they need to be agile through the use of no-code and low-code capability. So Cardinus has already had 2 core proprietary platforms in place when you started looking at this question. What was the tipping point, Andy, that led you to explore no-code and low-code as a way of innovating outside of those core systems?
Yeah. So, if I go back sort of pre-COVID into that world when COVID sort of took over, we were looking at our business. It was a large part of our business focused on the office and hybrid ergonomic workstation musculoskeletal world, but we wanted to deliver to our customers, many of whom were industrial. We were just doing the office related work, solutions that would improve the way that they assessed their industrial exposure, their manual handling exposures. Um, our core platforms use up our internal resource. So our IT development teams are working and maintaining and building those systems. So we needed, for us to enter this market, we would needed something either to employ lots of new coders or do something different. And when we started to look at the whole low code, no code space, and realized that we could start to build some platforms far quicker, easier, lower cost, and without the need to wait in effect for 2 or 3 years of existing route map to be done before we could enter that space. So that
Been a problem that a lot of insurers have, clearly.
Yeah, and it just gave us the ability. So when we found Neota, which was the tool we ended up focusing in on, it just gave us that ability to use existing non-code, non-software developer staff to start to explore some of the areas that we wanted to enter into. And rather than say waiting 2 years, we were able to sort of start to deliver some beta test solutions, some evaluation sites to some customers within months rather than years. And it's that flexibility, the agility, and the speed.
Okay, so this session is about moving from that platform dependency to a portfolio mindset. How has adopting no code enabled you to sort of stitch together those solutions without disrupting your core platforms?
Yeah, so if I look at the first product that we put in place, which is an industrial ergonomics assessment tool, we call it Healthy Working Pro. Um,
No.
that solution is quite complex in terms of its algorithmic requirements. Lots of very clever people have developed some very sophisticated assessments for the world of manual handling. And for me to get my development team to work on that was going to be, say, long term and more complex. No code has given us the ability to deliver quickly complex algorithmic solutions, and then to knit that together and integrate that through API connections to our back office mainframe old legacy system, which is delivering e-learning risk assessments. Um, and we put those together in pretty quick time. Within 4 or 5 months, we were delivering to our customers a solution that, say, in the old world would have taken us years to get through, or significant additional cost. I think it's that balance between really cost effective, getting a pilot solution evaluation site out for customers to look at really quickly, and start to then tweak that in a way that is now delivered as a system that customers are buying.
Right. So you've got all the advantages, but you're not disrupting your core platform in that regard. Okay. So you've developed apps like you said, Healthy Working Pro, and you're now integrating AI driven motion capture, I think. Can you walk us through how sort of no code made it possible to move from sort of concept to actually live in the market in weeks rather than years that you've been talking about?
Yeah, I mean so in this world of industrial, assessing the risk of the manual handling world, whether it be factories or warehouses, construction sites, and so on, um, sensor and motion capture are sort of the new kids on the block. So the last sort of 10, 15 years, we've seen the development of using video capture technology linked to AI solutions. So turning 2D images into 3D avatars and looking at the biomechanics of the human body. We've now managed to stitch that technology, which is not ours, it's not proprietary Cardinus, it's third-party solutions, and we've got 2 or 3 of those solutions that we work with, integrating that into our Healthy Working Pro app. So the biomechanic visual data is now recording assessments into our platform. And then on a sort of secondary note, we've then integrated that all into our main office hybrid, our legacy platform, Healthy Working, which is used by 2,000 customers around the globe, 6 million users. We now have that single solution, that enterprise for all ergonomic musculoskeletal risk across industrial, manufacturing, logistics, office, hybrid, laboratory. So it's a single platform, and it's by stitching them together. That would have been years worth of work if we were trying to build that into that single old legacy system that we had. We've been able to use no code as part of that stitching sort of integrated solution, and it's just got us to market a lot quicker and a lot lower cost.
Right. Okay. So you previously mentioned some concepts were shelved while others became part of your core. How do you decide what's worth scaling up, and how does no code support that balance of experimentation and innovation versus long term adoption?
I think one of the biggest benefits of having a no code platform like Neota is that we always treat it as an R&D function. It's that so we had one of our partners came to us with a concept, a well-being app concept. It wasn't really core to what we do. We're a health and safety driven business, not a well-being driven business,
Sure.
but there's a degree of commonality, certainly in the ergonomic world. We quite like the concept, and what we did was use Neota to build a prototype evaluation piloting platform that was also integrated into a very sophisticated stats engine that a third party had built. So we stitched those two together. And again, within 6 weeks, we were able to go to market with the concept, show some of our customers what we were thinking. It was a kind of live beta test environment, so it wasn't something we were just putting onto a PowerPoint and smoke and mirrors type approach. It was something that they could go and play with. As it turned out, we're probably the wrong company to work with it, and we said to the partner that we don't think our customer base and the people we talk to, you need to be talking to a different audience, an HR audience rather than a health and safety audience, and we're probably going to need to mothball this. I think it's something that we don't think it's right for Cardinus. But what we had was a solution that actually that partner has still taken on, not using our part of it. They've gone off and built their own sort of version of it. But it meant that it didn't cost us anything apart from time. But it actually we were able to sort of go and take a new idea to our customers. Didn't work, but it actually, in terms of in the old world, that would have been either just a bunch of PowerPoint slides with nothing for people to play with, or you'd have invested huge amounts of time, money, development, cost to build something that you ended up saying, actually, we failed. We built it, but nobody came. And I think that's where we've so that R&D test pilot type concept, I think really, that's where we see no code as being one of its biggest advantage. We can try something; it's not going to cost us a lot, and we can start taking things to market and just seeing how they're doing.
So I think that very much plays to sort of a couple of the fundamentals of innovation of fail fast, understand what failure might mean, and actually failure is a learning experience, and you can then work out from that what will work, what won't work, and whether it would work for your organization. So I think that experimentation piece is clearly very valuable for the organization as you're moving forward. And whether you take that technology on and that solution on, or you pass it on to a partner, it's a great place to be. So your upcoming self-assessment app for small medium enterprise risks is probably a great example of addressing market gaps. How do you see those sort of no-code solutions changing the economics of risk management for insurers, for MGAs, and for brokers as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, I don't know where the US market is at the moment, but in the UK market, we're seeing a softening of the commercial commercial marketplace. So what historically we built a platform that was about enabling the risk control audits, the on-site visits by surveyors to mid to large organizations, and that was our sort of core product. A great platform that made that really efficient, but actually lots of expensive people going out doing those surveys, costing anywhere between £500 and £2,000, $750 to $2,500, a typical on-site visit. So expensive. As markets have started to soften, say in the UK, we've seen trigger levels for why an insurer or an MGA will send some, outsource to us to go and send somebody out. That's moved up. So trigger levels have moved up from £2.5 to £5 million before, in some insured, before you would start to send them out. So what we've seen is lots of those risks that previously were being seen and not starting to be seen. So that the eyes and ears of the underwriter from a risk control is disappearing. We also, in talking to some of our insurers and MGA partners, is that they have this huge sway. I mean, hundreds of thousands, millions of customers in the SME space who never get seen, but actually their risks are still there. And whilst the underwriter may be sort of driven by his sort of pooled, homogenous sort of underwriting process, at the end of the day, there's lots of exposure that they don't really understand. So and literally we're in the first phase of it and we're using Neota to build the first phase, which is look at the top trades that our typical NGAs that we partner with are looking at, whether it be retail, construction, small manufacturing risks, leisure risks. Can we provide an SME self-assessment tool that risk rates all of the perils and all of the risks that an organization will have, and provide immediate guidance? So it's bringing the cost down to tens of pounds for each assessment, but giving both added value to the end user, to the policyholder. So you're giving immediate advice and guidance within minutes, but you're doing it at, say, £10-20 per audit rather than £500, £2,000 per audit. And you're providing the underwriter with huge amounts of risk scored data. And we know that in the world we're living in is now data is the most important thing everyone's after. And you go back to when we're back in the 90s, insurers didn't really care about data apart from claims data. Today, it's big data, it's AI data, it's everything. And if we can provide them with huge amounts of line by line granular data, they can start to help out into their pricing matrices that they have. And we're in the early stages. We've just built the first sort of test solution using Neota. We've picked sort of top 10 trades, and that will gradually be worked out. We've had some very interesting and very positive feedback from some of the MGAs in particular that we're working with, and we see the MGA market particularly as having this, they're more agile than the big insurers. They're using some of the no-code technologies, the InsurTech solutions to deliver it, and we can plug into that really, really well.
Okay, so changing the cost dynamics, a really important part of it. But looking ahead, you just highlighted there the potential of aggregated risk data to inform sort of pricing models and whatever. How do you see no code and AI together reshaping the role of data in underwriting and risk management over the next few years? Because I hear a lot about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that ability to use what you actually. I mean, if I take over the last 10 years, we've carried out 30,000 on-site visits, and all the underwriter has done is looked at the individual report for that individual risk. Yet they've missed out on the fact there's 30,000 of surveys, fully risk scored. What we're doing in the no-code self-assessment world, we were doing in the on-site, we're just scoring the reports, but nobody has been using that data in an aggregated format. And when we sat down with one or two more enlightened newer players in the market, say particularly the MGAs, and say, look, just take your own, your 2,000-3,000 surveys that we've done for you over the last 10 years and start to analyze what that actually means in terms of risk selection. You know where your claims are coming in, but do you know what? Could you have predicted where those claims are coming from the risk data that we gave you, which is far more granular than just the standard proposal form that you would get from your broker? I think it's that ability for them to take our granular data into their claims data, to use AI and big data solutions, whether it be wind, theft data, flood data, all the data that exists that you can pull in, and it's how you bring that together. We're part of that. We're just part of that sort of network of data solutions that can inform the underwriter. And so we've got some interesting dialogue, particularly with some, say, newer markets who are a bit more flexible and agile, and they're not sort of set in their ways. I think we're part of that hinterland.
Yep. So I'm reminded of, as you're speaking there, of the old action stack. You start with data, but data is useless to you unless you analyze it, and the analysis is no good unless you get insight from the analysis. And frankly, the insight's no good unless you make decisions, and decisions are no good unless you take action. So you've got a stack of things which you have to go through. But what I think I'm hearing from you, and possibly answers one of the questions that's come through from the audience. They've asked about how does no code enable implementation of a complex algorithm. That's exactly what you're doing there. You're not just putting data in there. You're putting AI analysis and using an algorithm to produce some of the things that are coming out of that system, all integrated into what you're doing in the no code Neota platform. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting like many organizations on your, understanding what AI can do. I think the red flagging of some of the, with Neota, using, Copilot, we can actually start to provide some, with as we learn the prompting and the whole sort of LLM world, is how can we start to predict if you've got this type of risk of this type of size in this type of area. These are the sorts of things that you need to be focusing your attention on before you kind of just deal with it in the post-loss world of just putting the rates up and deciding you're not going to underwrite those risks anymore. I think it's quite early days, but again, there are one or two organizations that we're talking to who certainly see that as part of their future, and we'll encourage that. We're looking at, we've got millions and millions of items of ergonomic risk data, and we've done 20-30 million risk assessments from some of the biggest global companies in the world over the last 30 years, and we've never analyzed the data.
Interesting.
But so being able to predict,
plenty of room for maneuver there then by the sound.
and again, we've got a couple of AI consultants that are just starting to say, what do you want to understand? And to some extent, we're in that phase of, we're not quite sure what's going to come out of it, but we know there's something will, and we're in that massive learning curve, as I'm sure many organizations are. So it's you're actually right. It's the so bloody what of the data. It's
Okay, so I'm just going to interrupt you there because we're running out of time, Andy. We've got two more questions I want to ask you. One come from the audience, and that's what are clients' experiences are like as they adopt no-code platforms? What are the key benefits realized post-implementation?
I mean, obviously, we're a customer of a no-code platform, but then we have customers that use our no-code platform. So, from our perspective, it's low-cost flexibility, agility, not using expensive resource to build the question sets and the hierarchies and the algorithms. We've used a business analyst in the main to do what previously I'd be having to invest in developers. So I think that that flexibility, agility, and lower cost is probably the key elements of it. Our customers are just getting really easy apps to use. I mean, they're getting the ability, to start to improve their. We're delivering things that previously would have taken too long to deliver, and the market has moved on. And I think it's just making it really simple for the user to use the systems. Healthy Working Pro typically saves about 3 hours per assessment. In the world of if you use our platform, previously you were using Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, you were measuring people, so you add motion capture to Healthy Working Pro, and you've got now you're saving huge amounts of time with greater accuracy and objectivity. Right.
So those things are very much what the end users are looking for. So look, Andy, we've got to our 30 minutes now. So I just wanted to ask you, what is the one thing that you would advise our audience to remember from this session that they can utilize in their daily work, maybe starting tomorrow?
Just don't be afraid of I think this whole thing around IT departments, CTOs, sort of, they've got their empires. They've built their systems. They're quite protective of, and I understand all that. And we had to go to our CTO and say, we're going to get something here that you're not going to build. We're going to use a no-code platform, and it's not something that you've got your hands all around. I'm going to use somebody else to do it as well, in terms of implement it. I think that type of open your mind embrace, understand how it can just give you a 1 + 1 = 3 solution, to my mind is the critical part, and it'll give you more flexibility and agility.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you very much indeed for that. I think we've probably come to the end of our time. I've really enjoyed it. We've covered a huge number of questions there. Thank you very much for being so hard to get and under the grilling that I've given you. It's been very much fun having you here. Where we've got a couple of other questions come up from the audience. Frankly, they're quite technical, so I wouldn't expect those to be at the front of your answer. So I'll park those for the moment and just say, look, to our audience, thank you very much for attending. For Neota for sponsoring this webinar, and for InsurTech New York for hosting us. I hope the audience have enjoyed it, and Andy, thank you very much for your insights.
And thank you, Tony, and the InsurTech team for today's session.
Thank you very much. Appreciate Tony and Andy for amazing session. And that is the end of the webinar. We'll be sharing the recordings with all of you in coming days. And look forward to meeting many of you in our upcoming events. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.